So again, this type of conversation is usually at the end of a chapter, end of the semester, or the end of an intro to sociology textbook. It's kind of the thing again that, once I've told you everything that there is to know about society, who and how we are, how we got here, what the structure of it is, what your place in it is. This usually is the last chapter because it's like giving you your marching orders. We've said that society is always changing, right? It's happening all the time. But we also said that there is, an attempt always, every society practices social control in an attempt to maintain social order. We don't want our society to disappear. We want our people to be safe. We want us to continue to perpetuate, get new people, do new things. And so the fact that the society is always changing, that creates a particular kind of tension. Things are always changing. They're changing either because there's some environmental influence, something about the weather patterns, drought, climate change, pandemics, some kind of environmental or external influence. It could be because of technological innovations, changes the way that we do things. Society is always changing, but it's always sometimes changing because of social movements. A social movement is a purposeful, organized group hoping to work toward a common goal. When we talk about collective behavior again, voluntary groups of people, voluntary collections of people who get together, they're not mandated by some institution to do a certain thing or not. The publics believe a certain thing or they're interested in a certain thing, and the masses have, common interests or common ideas. They've come together and said that we've got to do something, right? Social movements are either promoting change that is happening, we want this change to happen to keep it forward, or they're resisting changes that's happening. Oh no, this is not what we need to be doing in society, right? You don't know if it's the thing that's going to grow and make us better, or the thing that's going to shut us down. And we never want any of that. Social control is always trying to maintain social order, but change is always happening. And people have a grand part of that. So the social movements tend to, again, promote or resist particular types of social change, or that's having a lasting impact on society. And we tend to identify them based on their common goal, what it is they're trying to do. A social movement related to civil rights, for instance, a social movement related to anti-gay marriage, for instance, or a social movement related to environmental protection, for instance. It's the goal that they have that allows us to sort of identify who they are. So what I want to do is give you a typology or a way to sort of understand different types of social movements. And in doing so, I'm going to share my screen so you can see an image. These are 4 types of social movements. And you can see on the left, some social movements have the hope of impacting specific individuals, and some social movements have the hope of impacting everyone. And of those movements, some of them it's trying to find just sort of a limited amount of change, and some of them want full-fledged radical kind of change, like change everything or change everyone. So we'll go through each one of them. Let's focus on the top 2, for instance, social movements that have a goal or focus on change with specific individuals. An alternative social movement is a social movement that limits itself to self-improvement changes in individuals. So a social movement that's focused on getting people to stop smoking, for instance, or social movement that's focused on getting people to eat a vegan diet or paleo diet. The idea is this is very important. We need society to change. And in order for change to happen, I need you, individual, to do a certain thing. We can have a great impact on society if you focus on your smoking. If we can get individuals to stop smoking, then we can have an impact on society. So it's very focused on individuals. And we're not talking about change your entire life. We're talking about change a certain something. We can, however, talk about changing your entire life. So that's what we call a redemptive social movement. Redemptive movements are more radical and expect complete change. They're movements that work to promote interchange or spiritual growth in individuals. So think about things like religious conversions, especially when there's some new religious movement. When we talk about religions, we'll understand what cults are. They usually are just a new religious movement. Um, and again, we're not talking about change this one thing. That's all we're really talking about. We're talking about change your entire life. It's redemption or redemptive. We need radical, whole change for individuals to make. Let's talk at the bottom where we're talking about who is changed. Now we want everything or everyone to change. In a limited fashion, a reformative movement is a movement that seeks to change something specific about the social structure. So it's still something very specific. Where I used to talk about specific individuals, I would want you to stop your smoking. a, a reformative movement might say, you know what we need to do? We need to make cigarettes not available in society at all. I need to impact the social structure. We're not relying anymore on wanting to convince people to change their own particular thing or their own particular behavior. We're focusing on reforming the structure, changing the laws about cigarettes, for instance, altogether. We're making it so that cigarettes can't be sold at all. So something like mothers against drunk driving or wanting to change the laws about not texting and driving. Again, I'm no longer focused on trying to encourage individual behavior change. Now I'm trying to make change in a structural, larger level. I want this impact or I want this change to affect everybody. Or even when we think about things like movements toward recycling. At some point, I'm not asking you to make those changes in your household. I'm making it for all the cities to make sure that they have recycling bins at every home and a way by which people can get their recycling picked up. Again, large structural change that's no longer reliant on individual making individual changes in their behavior. The radical change that should impact everyone is a revolutionary social movement. And those are movements that seek to completely change every aspect of society. So when we think about something like the civil rights movement, I'm not asking individuals to make any particular change, and I'm not asking individuals to make any single one change. In fact, I need the whole society to stand up for this one, and we need to change everything. It is revolutionary in its focus. Sometimes we might be talking about even like a particular state, like when we talk about the Civil War, multiple states in the South got together and said, we are going to secede and no longer be a part of the United States. There's a movement in the state of Texas, for instance, that suggests they should do the same thing. We should, as Texas, secede from the state, from the United States. Again, not talking individuals and their individual behaviors. I'm not even talking about that individuals should make, whole changes. I'm talking about every single thing, every part of the structure should be changed and it should impact everybody. There's also resistance movements. And in this case, remember, social movements can either be promoting something to change or they can be trying to stop change that can happen. So a resistance change are those who seek to prevent or undo change to the social structure. So imagine that you've got each one of these social movements, an alternative movement, a redemptive movement, a reformative movement, a revolutionary movement. Often, if you have something like mothers against drunk driving, I'm making this up, you could have another set of people that's saying, I don't think that there should be any changes to the way that people tell people when they should be able to drink. I should be able to drink if I want to, and you shouldn't be able to tell me. So sometimes you'll have a resistance movement that emerges to challenge the work of the movement that's trying to make something happen. These people might be trying to make whatever that is not happen or change things that are happening. And we might sometimes talk about them specifically as counter movements. We define social movements based on their goal, well, my goal might be to stop you, or my goal might be to resist change that I'm seeing already, and I want to stop that change. So sometimes you'll see those resistance movements, the the rhetoric of those movements would be like, keep the things the way that they are, or let's go back to when things were simple, um, or to talk about the changes that are going on as oppressive forces. And there's something that's where people are trying to tell you how you're supposed to be able to live your life, right? Your book, I do believe, and it's usually there, your book will talk to you about sort of stages of social movements when they become formally organized, how your leader is defined, and then sometimes when they get big enough and structured enough, the point at which that leadership then becomes, a formal leader. And now you've got an organization with a name, or that leader, because they're so critical and important, might then get a government position or political position. And sometimes when that happens, the movement itself might start to sort of dwindle out because their leadership isn't so clear, or you might, wonder, did they sort of lose their radical behavior now that they work in the government or have some other position, for instance. And there's a lot to be said about how social movements happen in the current world with sort of hashtag activism. What does it mean for social movements to spread over the internet or social media? Some social movements used to develop, or like when we think about how the civil rights movement worked, sometimes it was very important to stage a particular protest or thing when they know that they can get the news cameras out, because that's how we'll get people to know what we're up to or what it is that we're fighting. We can get the cameras to show up. Well, that's not a problem so much anymore with people with mobile phones and social media, and the messages about things can get around. So once we know that, there are different types of social movements, there's a lot to learn about how social movements develop, how they're successful, and then sometimes how they disappear. So lots to be learned in that way. And again, this tends to be the chapter at the end of the semester because they tend to be your marching orders. Here's your society. Here's what we know about it. Here's your part. Here's when things are going great or when things are not going so great. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? Go out there and make a change. So that's why we tend to see this at the end of the semester. But I think it's usually good also to see it early when we're talking about things like groups and people and behavior and how society is changing, because it always is. So we'll move on from here. Thanks for watching.